Well, that is our show for this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Most importantly, I hope you learned something. I do hope that you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling, and ring the bell so that you'll get notices of all our future shows. And if you'd like to join us live on Zoom, I hope you'll subscribe to our website, newtracksmodeling.com, and you'll receive an email with the login for our future Zoom shows. So thank you so much again for being here this evening. Tell your friends about us, and happy modeling until next time. And now we will go to what is called the after show. Again, I apologize. Clark Kooning, MMR, is out fishing again and getting a suntan. So he's not with us this evening. So I will open it up for any comments or suggestions or ideas or whatever anybody would like to talk about. So who'd like to go first?
Don't everybody start at once.
One of the questions Clark always answers, do we have anybody that's new, that's never been here before? Well, do we have anybody that's been here before that would like to say anything?
We do seem to have a few less people this week.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And, you know, it's summertime. It doesn't surprise me. We've got-
People traveling for the holiday, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's 4th of July week. I think that's a biggie.
Yeah,
People are already on the road if they can afford to be.
Yeah. Well,
but
since
you know, we've got,
since-
what is it, 20 something on Zoom and another 11 on YouTube. So that's 30 something. So that, you know, that's definitely light. But, you know, I'd
Well,
rather go ahead and have the shows and let the people that can come. The rest of the people, they can always watch it on our YouTube channel later. And we're getting significant hits on that. We're averaging 400 plus on our YouTube now for the videos. So, you know, I think that's important. I think a lot of people are watching the videos, or they're watching them again, maybe. I don't know. But I do think that we're getting a larger audience than I originally, certainly than larger than what Dylan and I started with 2 years ago.
Since Phil is still here, in the pre-show we were talking about modules and things like that. I was going to show, since I found something. This is from a group called Sipping and Switching Society of North Carolina. They originally started this thing. And this isn't exactly in order, unfortunately, but what they do is, now that I've messed this up, let's see, what they do is they build this thing called a waffle base or whatever. So they put holes in here on the bottom, which will be the bottom, and then they put it on top of what'll be the top. They spray paint it so they'll know where the cross areas are, and they'll paste on these cross pieces and then longer stringers to try to stabilize it. And so here it is with all those things on, and then with that bottom piece connected, and it looks like this. And they just use these, what do they call those, folding dining tables?
Yeah.
They don't even bother to try to level these things and match their height. These things are supposed to be tough enough that they don't even have to worry about leveling off the system. And you can kind of see Let me see if I can, I think there was, here's their template here, right here. It's a metal piece. And it's got
Oh.
4 holes in it.
Moving.
Let me see if I can find that other one.
Oh, well,
Where'd it go? So here's a longer shot of a template. These guys are HO, and they try to conform where they can actually match up with Fremo modules. Because since this is a small group, they don't want to just be trying to connect with their own group, right? And then they drill these holes, 4 holes, and then you can see where they put the permanent pipes. So there's 2 pipes on one module, and then they'll put permanent pipes on the other module, and they just match up. So it's like a 4-point matchup. So, you know, Phil was talking about starting up something, but that's the kind of template they use. Phil, you disappeared.
Yeah, I had to step away for a second. It's that.
So you didn't see any of that I showed.
No, I saw it. No, I saw it. Yeah, no, I did see it. Yeah, yeah.
Because I've seen some modular groups where they just use 2 pins on one module and 2 holes on the other. You know, where this one is 2 pins on one side, 2 pins on the other, but 4 holes where they match.
I'm involved in
Yeah,
a modular group, and they gave up alignment pins altogether. They just line it up on the track and clamp it together.
Well, these guys have been around for at least 30 years that I know, because they've got 30-year-old modules. And
I think that. Go ahead.
and using the template system they use, every module can fit together. They don't have to adjust anything.
I think, Jamie, the key difference here is the level of organization and compliance you get from the membership.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so basically, if you start a club with, 5 guys and you say, we're going to have a templated standard at the end of the modules, we're going to do it this way, and everybody's going to do it that way, you can do it for 30 years. If you get together and 2 people or 3 people out of the 5 says, well, I'm going to go just do whatever I want, then you get whatever you want.
Yeah, well, they have a very clear standard. It's just
Right.
it's kind of a, track. You have to have one track that's kind of smack dab in the middle.
Yep.
And
But-
so then
Right.
when you just clamp it together, they tend to model branch lines, so it's a lot of single track stuff. And sort of, it's kind of like yours in the middle can do anything, but then on either end, you've got like one track, and you just line up the track and put a C clamp on it, and that's it.
That's ours basic, the modular group I'm part of, we do a 2x6-inch end plate with one track in 6 inches. That's the standard. And then there's a right and left.
Well, if you look at this, it's not just one track. I mean, you have the option of having all these tracks out here
Right,
and
no.
all these tracks out here.
No, I understand. And you could do the same thing with the alignment pins as well. The only nice thing about the pipes is that you can reverse them pretty easily between the modules.
Right. They're able to just
But-
either
but-
direction, either end
but
could match.
But
with the other end.
here's what's kind of interesting. When you do a module where you've got a single track that's between the modules, it's a standard single track, and it's
The
off
center
of one side, it's not centered. Then what you can do is you can always put the alignment pins in the same positions, because you can only align one end of any module with any other module, and they're always going to be the same. And that's kind of the way the electrical connections are as well.
Is Fremo kind of the standard now for clubs or not?
No, it's a specific N scale standard.
No. Fremo is the HO. They're HO.
Okay.
And
That was-
And it's not NMRA, and I think NMRA didn't want to get involved with another standard. So all the Fremo people just get together, and the Fremo N people are getting together to develop their own standards between clubs and regions.
There used to be a standard by NMRA, but they ventured away from that standard and started doing their own thing. I know that's what we did.
Well, I don't know if Fremo, the HO Fremo actually had an NMRA, standard.
I think Gary could attest to it. There was one out there. I remember years ago they had a standard for building the modules, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I think they did.
Yes, they did.
But I don't think it had anything to do with Fremo. It was the NMRA standard, module standard, and then Fremo came along and
Yeah, the way I understood it was by the time Fremo came along, NMRA just didn't want to be involved with another standard.
yeah.
When in doubt, go to Wikipedia.
They still have the standard on the NMRA website for their.
So Fremo is the Friendship of European Railway Modelers.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
it's
it started in Europe.
Yeah, it's a European standard. There's a North American standard, which is the Fremo, FREE-MO off of that. And then there's an N-scale variant, which I was thinking about. And then there's an NMRA British region Fremo standard. So
Yeah, and it's
like
odd.
many standards in the world, there are actually 4 separate versions that are probably totally incompatible.
Well, I think it's odd because I think in Europe, there's actually a Fremo America or something standard as well.
I would definitely imagine that the HO stuff won't mate up with the N scale stuff. So yeah, that's probably totally.
That's for sure. The European stuff won't either because it's meter gauge, right? Anyway.
No, we have an HO layout with an N scale track running around on top of it.
There's also N-Track, which is an N-scale.
Yeah.
Modular standard, and NMRA still has their own standard on their website.
So what are clubs doing now? Are they going, are clubs just developing their own and that's it? Or is there a common standard out there that clubs try to make sure they can live with?
Well, the Fremo and clubs, the people that are regional, they are get together. They're on groups.io and what's that other thing I don't like? Yahoo or what is that?
Yahoo.
Oh, friend, Facebook.
Facebook.
They have a big Facebook group, and they're getting the standards together.
Well, the S scalers developed a long time ago. They developed SMOD. So that's, the NASG has put out an SMOD standard, and there you can go probably to the website and get the whole entire, shenanigans of what's up there. And then, as I said, I'm involved with this club that's nominally Canadians, but there's a couple of us from down south, and they are more of a Fremo sort of idea where that it's more single track stuff, whereas a lot of the SMOD stuff, it's double track. You tend to end up getting sort of loops of track with trains running around. They're great for the mall where the kids come by and watch them. But the Fremo stuff was more like people who wanted to operate railroads, and they could get together and like you didn't have to have a huge layout in your house, but you could get together every once in a while with all your buddies and put it up in a gymnasium or whatever, and then you'd have a giant railroad you could play with. So.
Yeah, as far as operations, it's kind of odd. I was talking to somebody who does Fremo, I think, in an N-Gauge, and I was talking to them about operations, and they just gave up on it because, it's only every once in a while you bring the modules together, and it could change from time to time. So it's hard to get an operations going where you have different towns and at one show, and then at another one you have another setup. So it's hard to arrange.
So what do they do?
About 2 weeks ago, I actually operated on the Orange County Modular Railroaders, and they have a modular layout that's really pretty much built for operations. But what it really is, it's an industrial area, modeled after LA industrial areas. So essentially, there's a series of industrial areas that get configured, and the operations are basically from a yard going out to an industrial area, doing switching and coming back to the yard. So it's not like a through traffic with TT, with, you know, timetables and train orders or anything like that. It's much more of kind of an industrial layout. So I think if you do that from a modular perspective, it's probably a lot easier to actually do operations on a modular layout.
But so you're
Um,
talking about a club that always meets the same people, right? So they know how their arrangement's going to be.
Well, the arrangement changes. They do different arrangements in different locations. And they use they use waybills and cards, and they operate that way. But it's not, the difference is it's not like there's a mainline railroad with stations and through trains. It's much more, there's a train out of the yard that gets scheduled out and has to go out and switch a specific industrial area. So I think they had probably 4 or 5 industrial areas, and they can reconfigure the layout for the room and move those around.
But
That's
to do-
actually,
But to do car cards, you have to know what industries are going to be there to set it up.
but they're on the module. But so that what happens is, we were going to do this with our ON30 group the same way. Each module setup has a set of specific industries, and if you put 2 of those together and say that's going to be an industrial area, then you've got the industries that go in that area, and you can just run them in and out of there. Now, there's a whole bunch of setup of setting the cards up when you set the layout up the first time. Now, they were set up in Simi Valley, up in the station in Simi Valley, and I think they set up there fairly regularly. So they have a kind of a standard layout they configure there every time. So a little bit depending on the venue they're in, they have a specific configuration that they put in that venue and replicate it. And then they kind of know how the industries, et cetera, work for that venue. But if you think about it, if I essentially come to the a meet with my modules, and if I have all my cards in that with me, then you can kind of integrate it together there. And then the working is just setting it up so that you have the right resources going to the trains. So you say, okay, I want to run a train out here and I need these things. So I've got to find, cars to carry these loads.
There's an HO group out of Ohio called Havoc, and they set up at that Indianapolis show. And, I look at their blog posts. And,
Yep.
they had a whole thing going on. They planned it all out. Like Indy told them you can have this much space. So they figured out what they could put in. And then they developed a whole operating scheme for it. And then they had a whole bunch of the people that operated were actually just attendees who walked up at the show and said, oh,
Right.
can I drive a train here? They gave them a throttle. So, somebody's managing to sort of do that. I wouldn't exactly say on the fly, but certainly, if they set it up again, it could be completely different.
Yeah, actually, for our PCR convention that we were doing in 2020 that got canceled, we were going to set up the ON30 group. And what we'd done was identified the layout with 4 basic switching areas. And so the idea was for each switching area, you would have a train that was set up for that switching area that was started in the yard. So you would walk up and say, I want to do operations. You would be assigned a train for industrial area, switching area number 3. And that train in the yard would have 4 cars because it's fairly short passing sidings. So you can't have super long trains. And the idea is you would take that train, you would go out to an area you were going to switch. There would be a diagram of that area, but you would get a switch list. So instead of using cards, the idea was just do it with a switch list. So you would be told, put this car needs to switch to this industry. This one needs to go here, pick these cars up, move this car from here to here. So you end up with about 9 or 10 moves, 4 set outs, 4 pickups, and 1 or 2 moves. And then when you get done, you bring the train back to the yard, say thank you, and you walk away. Person in the yard just flips the cars, and then switch list the next time is just reversing what you just did. So the idea was to make it so people who wanted to try operations could do it without all the complexity of a schedule and, TT and TO, et cetera, and could just come up and try taking a train out, switching an area, experiencing what it's like to go through the thought process of doing a switch list and have someone there to kind of advise you as you went through that process. We saw it less as doing at a show like that for the public, less as doing real intense operations, and more as kind of almost an introduction to operations for folks that have never tried it, were operations curious but afraid, say.
I think that would be sort of what the Havoc guys were trying to do too.
Exactly. And my reason for doing it was from an NMRA perspective, to get more folks that, kind of expressed an interest. My first time I did an operations session, I signed up for one out here at Bay Rails, and the owner sent out this very nice email. It was really nice. He welcomed everybody. He said, we're a fun group. We're easygoing. We don't worry about anything too much. I've attached our operations manual, the rules, et cetera. And there were 140 pages of documentation attached to the email to read before you came to operate. And let me tell you, you guys probably know me by now. I don't get intimidated very well, but I found it kind of a bit intimidating at first. So yeah, the idea here was to take that intimidation away and get people kind of hooked on this idea of the thought process and how it engages your brain in ways you probably haven't engaged for a while. So that was kind of the logic.
Keeps the old brain matter working.
Yeah. You don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I know for me personally, one of my early issues of model railroading was a whole issue. Model railroader was a whole issue devoted to operations. And from that point on, every railroad I ever thought about building had an eye toward operations. I was talking to somebody that was saying, I see a lot of people that try to build a railroad and then shoehorn some kind of operations into it. Whereas for me, it's always been like, I always think about a railroad as to what it's going to do as far as operations.
Oh.
Phil, our third party can't make it tomorrow night, so you want to,
Yeah, let's just you and I get together and go through just
That-
make sure we're lined on details.
that's fine. That's fine.
So by the way, well, I don't know if I showed this. I don't think I showed this last week. Let me show this. Oh, come on, what's going on here? There you are. I'm going to share my screen here. You guys will appreciate this. So this is Gary Siegel's layout. It's the L&N Eastern Kentucky division. So this was another layout I got a chance to operate on.
Yeah,
And I have to tell you,
that's a nice one. That's where I go.
it's a pretty amazing layout.
Can you imagine the guy built that just about all by himself? One guy.
Yep. And it was interesting. In his commentary was he started with a 3-car garage right here. You can kind of see the 3-car garage right in this area. And I think this was something back here, some part of the house, either a shop or something back here. And apparently after he filled that with layout, his wife complained that she didn't have a garage any longer. And he says, honey, no problem. I'll build you a 2-car garage. So he built this 2-car garage. And the crew said by the time the garage was built, by the time the garage was being built, the layout was already designed to be in there. And they said there was actually a car entered at one point to show it could be parked, but there never was actually a car parked in the garage.
Well, you haven't told him what he did to the garden.
Oh, he's got a huge garden railroad too. That's absolutely true also. But I just thought it was a fairly amazing layout.
So Ken, you have operated on that layout too?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
We meet when until COVID.
Yeah. What
Yeah, see, Ken lives there. I'm from up north, so I drove down for an operations weekend, but Ken gets to do that one regularly.
Okay, so obviously that guy's in California, and how did he come about the L&N?
Well, I guess he visited West Virginia or whatever, and he fell in love with the coal. You know,
Operations. Okay.
yeah. I think he was intending to do West Coast, but
Yeah.
he just loved the area.
You know,
You know,
I think
everyone-
that's,
Every
Go
once
ahead.
in a while, you know, as an S scaler, you kind of look at what is available and what you could, you know, instead of trying to like go off on your own and build something, you say, well, what's there that I could use to build? And, you know, one of the things we have is a very nice, like Southern Pacific, Union Pacific 280. And I occasionally think about like modeling the packing houses and shuffling reefer cars to the packing houses in California. It'd be kind of fun. So,
yeah, you know, I think that the difference is from just almost a modeling and scenery perspective. That area has the advantage of a lot of traffic density, but within hills. You know, if you look at California where there's traffic density, it's all flat. It's out in the valley. So I think that may be a bit of it that, you know, it's a different, fairly different landscape than what you would see based on where the railroads were. There aren't many railroads in the hills in California. Because there wasn't, you know, things that railroads went in, but the coal went way back into the hills, those coal trains.
yeah, I've been back into a few of those hills,
Yep.
chasing after those coal trains. Well, I'm gonna go, guys. Good night.
No, Jimmy, thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
guys, I think I'm going to call it. I'm kind of talked out here, and this is only like day 5 of my COVID recovery. So we will
Yeah,
talk
Jim-
to you all later. Have a good
Stay
one.
safe.
Jim, I think
Thanks.
it's time to officially
Yes,
say goodbye to YouTube.
I think it is too, and I'm gonna hit it, so I think we
Good.
can say
Bye.
goodbye. See you all next time. Thank you.
All right.